morning, everybody. I want to thank you all for being here this morning or afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Nicole Fisher. I'm a small business person here on Maui, and I want to welcome you to Global Entrepreneurship Week. It's an awareness campaign engaging millions of people each November through 35,000 activities and other efforts that celebrate entrepreneurs and inspire others, particularly those who face structural barriers or who may never have considered the idea of launching their own startup. Global Entrepreneurship Week Aloha State is focusing on nudging Hawaii State entrepreneurs to the next level, and it counts with the official support and partnership of the nationwide Global Entrepreneurship Week, which is GEW USA, and Worldwide Global Entrepreneurship Week, GEN. So here on in Hawaii, we have 12 events this week coming from 4 counties in Hawaii taking on the day to celebrate their small businesses and entrepreneurs. To view any of those or to RSVP, you can go to gewalohastate.org. I wanted to talk a little bit about housekeeping, just a few pieces here. Please mute yourself while the event is in progress. And if you want to change your view, there's a little button at the top. It's called Layout button on the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you can change that to speaker view. And there will be a Q&A session at 45 minutes after the hour. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat box, and I will be feeding those to our special guest. So you're sitting here looking forward to sustainable and successful I guess that's the title, Sustainable and Successful with Jim Wyburn. And then the next one that's coming up after this event is Tips for Running a Successful Nonprofit. So here I am right now going to introduce you to Dr. Jim Wyburn, who is a well-known speaker in the aquaculture industry. Boy, that was hard to say for me. He is currently founder and chairman of High Plan, an entrepreneurship support organization on the Big Island. And we are so thankful to have you, Jim, and I want to give you the show. So I'm going to stop sharing and you can start doing your thing. Thank you for being here.
Aloha and good morning. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me today, and thanks especially to all you who are tuning in. This is a great event. I'm particularly pleased to be part of the Global Entrepreneur Week since I am a global entrepreneur. I did shrimp broodstock business in 26 countries around the world. Let me share how do I do this? Okay, wow.
At the bottom of your screen, there's a share button.
At the bottom of the screen, wow. I lost that already.
Did you lose it? So go down to the very bottom of your screen and look for the icon that's Cisco WebEx. It's blue and green. Do you see that?
There it is.
All right, click on that, and then you should see the menu. Do you see share?
I'm so sorry, Nicole.
That's okay.
Now it's starting over in a new version of WebEx. This is what I was afraid of. I don't know this technology, so I'm like struggling.
That's okay. If you
want... man, sorry.
No, you're good. So you're still on with me. So you just opened up another window. So we need to get you back to the window.
Okay, I'm back in the window with you featured. So, okay.
Do you see share screen at the bottom?
Yeah, share screen. Okay.
There you go. Super.
Okay, great. Share that.
You are on.
Okay, that's great. Now, will it let me? It doesn't let me get to my text. Okay, so let me go back to the first screen. Thank you very much for everyone, for the organizers of this, for inviting me here. Let me get this out of the way. For some reason this panel is in the way, but okay, can't see it. So I'm going to talk to you today about sustainability and success, my Hawaii entrepreneur story. And I'm going to go through my story, which includes the founding and development of the 5 companies listed at the top of this panel. These are all businesses that I started over the years in Hawaii, and I'm going to tell you about each of them and how they all relate. And I'm going to hopefully share some of the entrepreneurial lessons that I've learned in my experience, because there's some value in that. So our story begins. Why doesn't this? There we go. Okay, our story begins with these words: PhD with family seeks aquaculture opportunity. And that was an advertisement I posted in the Honolulu newspaper. This was at the time I was just finishing my PhD at University of Hawaii. I had a young family with 2 sons, including one who was just a baby, and I needed to create an opportunity to make a living and support my family. So I ran this ad in the Honolulu newspaper, and here's the first lesson. Never underestimate the power of advertising. It's amazing. I got a phone call from this guy who said, Jim, you should come out and visit me. I want to show you something, and maybe there's an aquaculture opportunity in it. So Carol and I went out to visit this guy. It was at the Loko'ea Fish Pond, which is in Haleiwa on the north shore of Oahu. And we were blown away by the beauty of the place and just what we felt was tremendous potential, untapped potential. And so Carol and I reached agreement quickly and told the guy we wanted to do it. We signed a lease to develop Loko'ea Fish Pond into a commercial fish farm, and thus began my career in aquaculture. I have a lot of entrepreneurial experience that I gained from doing that project at that place, and I will say that I've even told people in meeting that I grew up in Haleiwa because I went there naive, and through trial by fire, doing a business there, I learned a lot and I grew up. So I grew up in Haleiwa. So anyways, we leased the pond. Then we had to develop a business plan. And so we named the company North Shore Fish and Produce. And the plan was that North Shore Fish and Produce would be based at Loko'ea Fish Pond in Haleiwa. And we would blend traditional aquaculture systems, which the Hawaiians had been farming fish in fish ponds for 500 years. And we would blend that with modern aquaculture technology to optimize the pond productivity. The fish and other products coming from the pond, we actually harvested 15 different species, harvested and sold. We sold almost all of our products through the farmers' open markets run by the city and county of Honolulu. And that was a really great experience for us. A couple of very important events that occurred during our time at Loko'ea are listed in this slide. The first was that we did our first broodstock sales from Loko'ea. These were, we were selling broodstock mullet and milkfish, and we were selling them to the fish program over at Oceanic Institute. And this experience really excited me because the idea of getting $100 or $150 for one fish as opposed to $3 a pound was pretty compelling to a young, struggling entrepreneur. I liked the idea of broodstock sales a lot. The second thing that happened at Loko'ea that was absolutely transformational for me was we did our first crop of shrimp there at Loko'ea. A company called Am Orient, who had a big operation both in Kahuku but also down in Ecuador, brought in some shrimp from Ecuador to Kahuku and started a small shrimp hatchery. And we heard about that. And so I got some of their post larvae, the baby shrimp, from that hatchery in Kahuku and stocked them in a small constructed pond, nursery pond I had built at Lokawea. And we managed and took care of those shrimp for about 100 days, 3 months, whatever. And then harvested those shrimp and took them to the open market where we were selling all of our fish products. And oh my God, the people went crazy. They loved the shrimp. They were literally throwing money at us. Well, we quickly sold out. And it was on the way home in the car that day. I told Carol, I said, that was transformational. I have to pivot my career. And, we were planning that Lokawea would be a fish farm. And I said, somehow I have to pivot to shrimp. Well, it's interesting that I had come to that realization because shortly after that realization, I got a phone call from Oceanic Institute. Hold that thought. Okay, so success. This is one of the subjects in the title of my lecture that they gave me. What is success? Well, by definition, success is achieving a stated goal. Well, that's really, really important for an entrepreneur because one, you need to set goals, and two, you need to achieve those goals. And so that's a really important thing, and people need to understand how do you do that. Like, goal setting is a really important exercise, and it's not as obvious as the words sound, okay? A second thing about success is that success is a process. It's not a destination. And by that, I mean you have to work at it every day. You have to just keep working at it. And you don't suddenly reach this point and say, oh, I'm a success, and now I can just cruise. It doesn't work that way. You got to be successful every day. It's what it takes. You got to be determined and keep doing it. And then the third thing I have to say about success is that success breeds success. And by that, I mean, when you set a goal and achieve it, that's success. And if you do that, then it opens new doors. It creates momentum, and you start moving forward. And you have a marker in the ground. This is my success. Now I'm going to go on to the next goal and accomplish that, and then the next goal. And so this is a way of building your career, your business, is setting reachable, attainable goals that you can get to and start to build some momentum in the directions that your career is going. A second thing that I wanted to discuss here that's very, very important these days in the era of climate change and all the problems that are happening that we're all well aware of. And this is about the issue of sustainability. And the big gold standard for sustainability is the assemblage of these 17 goals as articulated by the United Nations. They call them the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them. It's very broad. It covers pretty much everything you can think of. My personal favorite, of course, is number 14, Life Below the Water, because of my career in aquaculture. And so that's the one I pay a lot of attention to. I doubt there's anybody walking around that can recite those 17 Sustainable Development Goals off the top of their head. So an easier way to understand sustainability and the Sustainable Development Goals is the paraphrase, the 3 Ps. And this is also from the UN. They've come around to utilize this little phrase all the time. And the 3 Ps are people, planet, and prosperity. You can see them at the top of the slide. So people is, we want to be nice to people and not be abusive and not have, bad behavior and treat people kindly. Second is the planet. We got to be nice to our planet, not pollute it, not abuse it, not pour CO2 into the atmosphere. We have to live in balance with our planet. And finally, it's prosperity. And prosperity is really important but difficult to understand that people need to prosper. They need to make enough money to live a decent living. And this is really the challenge. And I think that this is where entrepreneurs can have their biggest contribution to sustainability, because they can come up and develop systems where prosperity is built into the system. So back to Locoea, some lessons. Plan your work. This is very, very important for entrepreneurs. And you'll hear later that I've carried this message with me all the way up till the present. And that I really believe in developing business plans if you're in business, to have a business plan. If you're not in business, say you're working for somebody, but you're earlier in your career, then you should be planning that. You should develop a plan, and you should then work on your plan. And that's how you get to somewhere specific. Just like if you want to get from here to Boston, you check out Google Maps and plot a path. That's a plan. And that's the same way one should deal with their career development or your business. In developing those plans, I like to say, think big, but start small. And by that, I mean your plan should be really something significant, something that if you get there, you're going to be really proud of it, and you're going to really have achieved something. And I think that that should be a cornerstone of one's plan. But that's on the big scale, and you need to have a start small idea, which is, the great analogy for that is every trip starts with a single step. So that first step is key, and you need to start small and have something like a small step, which is achievable, so that you get back to that success pathway. Okay, the third one is focus on the customer. Of course, in the age of Amazon, we've all heard this a dozen times. Amazon says, focus on the customer. Well, they're incredibly successful because of that. There's wisdom in that catchphrase, focus on the customer. It's super important. That's who's going to give you money for your services or product, is your customers. So you have to figure out what it is they want and get it to them. Fourth is, don't be afraid to fail. I put this in here in particular for my friends and colleagues in Hawaii. I think Hawaii people tend to be kind of shy about taking risks. And maybe it's a little bit Asian culture, they don't want to lose face. If you fail, you lose face. And that's an embarrassment to your family, to your ancestors, and all that jazz. Well, that's not the way of entrepreneurship. You don't seek to fail, but you have to take some chances and try and do your best. And if you fail, you'll discover there's tremendous lessons to be learned in that failing. Why did you fail? There's a story that goes around Silicon Valley that if you want an appointment, if you're an entrepreneur and you want an appointment with a Silicon Valley VC, you better be prepared to give them in detail a description of your first or biggest failure. And if you can't describe a significant failure to the VC, they don't even want to talk to you, okay? And be prepared. Number 5, be prepared. I've used this motto all my life. I was a Boy Scout as a kid. That's the motto of the Boy Scouts of America. It's served me very well, and I encourage everybody, incorporate that as your daily mantra. Be prepared. Be ready to take on whatever is coming, because the world is changing very quickly now. Finally, in these entrepreneurial lessons, carefully choose your partners. Do the due diligence needed before you make an agreement with somebody. It can't be just because you like them. Well, I'm super lucky because I have a great partner. All 5 of those companies that I listed at the beginning that I'm going to tell you about today, I was partners with my lovely wife, Carol Araki Wyban, and she's been a fantastic help to me. And I must say, I couldn't have done these things that I've done without her kindness and generosity. If some of the things that I've said about Hawaiian fish ponds interest you, then you can find a lot more detail about Hawaiian fish ponds in Carol's beautiful book that she's holding here. Is called Tide and Current: Fish Ponds of Hawaii. She wrote it. She's the illustrator of it, and it really tells the whole story of Hawaiian fish ponds, and it's quite a beautiful book. It is available from Press. I like to finish the fish pond part of my talk with this statement that Hawaiian fish ponds are valuable cultural and natural treasures, and they can be sustainable seafood resources. These mullet in the picture were caught by my friend just the other day in a Hawaiian fish pond in Hilo. He caught them on pole and line. Those mullet were stocked as little fingerlings by the state of Hawaii. That's Wailoa Pond, and what a great project, right? So I told you earlier that one of the big events in the Lokawea experience was that we grew our first crop of shrimp. Our customers loved it. I told Carol I have an idea of pivoting to the shrimp industry in my career development. And lo and behold, a short time after I had reached that decision, I got a phone call from Oceanic Institute. And basically, they were recruiting me to come and work at OI. And they gave me the position of principal investigator for the U.S. Marine Shrimp Farming Program, which was a very large multi-institution research project funded by the USDA. And the goal of the project was to develop technology to support the development of the U.S. shrimp farming industry. At the time, something like 90% of all the shrimp being eaten in the United States was being imported, and most of that was coming from shrimp farms around the world. And so the USDA rationalized that, wow, we should be doing that in the United States. So we did a lot of really cool stuff at OI in developing shrimp technology, some of which is included in this book that I wrote with my team and my partner, Jim Sweeney. It was called Intensive Shrimp Production Technology. Interestingly, it was published the same year as Carol's book, and it really documents a lot of the basic technology that we used at OI over the years that I was there, 8 years. And it's a lovely book, and it's much appreciated out in the industry. The real star of the show right now is this shot right here. This is a mature SPF P. Vaname female. So all the red that you see running down her back is her mature ovary. This female's ready to spawn. It's very interesting. But anyways, these animals, the SPF Vaname that we developed at Oceanic Institute, literally changed the world of shrimp farming. Let's see. So we had this assignment to help the U.S. shrimp industry. So we went out and we talked to the shrimp farmers around the United States and asked them what their problems were and what we could do to help them. And the most common thing we heard from the farmers was that they were having disease problems. So we said, okay, we gotta solve this disease problem. So we talked to a lot of people, and we came up with this idea that, okay, let's try to develop an SPF animal. SPF is acronym for specific pathogen free. Basically, it means that the shrimp are disease free, and we pass them through a quarantine and testing process to certify that they are clean. Well, so we just set that as a goal, our group, and started working on it. And we got the animals into our facility in Kona, and grew them. That was in 1990 that we actually had them growing in Kona. And we wanted to see how they would do out in the commercial industry. So we got some of the commercial parties to agree to stock some SPF shrimp into ponds on their commercial farms. And we had it in farms in Hawaii, out at Kahuku, and we had them in farms in Texas, and we also had them in South Carolina, and this was in 1991. Well, by the fall, when the ponds were harvested, everybody that had a chance to grow the SPF shrimp was thrilled and said, oh my God, this is fantastic. We need more of this. So we doubled down on our efforts to produce the broodstock, and we grew more broodstock in Kona and had enough. We distributed them in the spring of 92 so that there was enough broodstock out in the industry so that all of the ponds in the United States that were growing shrimp used SPF stock from our breeding program in Kona. And by the fall of 1992, we got the results, and they're illustrated there. The white bar was the total U.S. shrimp farming production from the SPF shrimp. And look at that, they doubled the production of the industry of the previous 4 years by switching to the SPF thing. Oh my God, this is huge. So I looked at those data and I was just blown away. So immediately went to my boss at OI and said, look, this is amazing. Look at these results. Oh my God, this is going to change the world. We have to commercialize this. Let's go start a company and let's, run with this. This is going to be amazing. And he said, no, Jim, just relax, calm down. You're a good researcher. Keep writing your papers. We're a research organization. We don't do commercial. We like those federal grants. And I said, really? Are you sure? I mean, this is like going to be huge. Come on. They said, no, we don't do it. I said, I have to do this. So I quit my job. Of course, I consulted with my wife, but I quit my job and decided to leave OI and take my plunge back into the entrepreneur world. And there it was. I started a new business. It was called High Health Aquaculture. And this was our business plan. We would globalize the SPF technology. And in addition, we would develop additional SPF shrimp species. We would initiate a breeding program for our shrimp stocks. We would seek SBIR grants. Those are federal research grants, small business innovative research. We like those because they're non-dilutive capital. That is, you're getting money, but you don't have to give up any equity. So that's a really nice thing. And entrepreneurs, I warn you, be careful. If you take an investor, be careful. Try to find non-dilutive capital if you can. Okay, and then final step of the business plan was to grow the company to a significant level and then exit. And we went down to Kona to the Natural Energy Lab and secured a site there. The Natural Energy Lab is about an 850-acre facility in Kona, right next to the Kona airport. And it's a natural energy research and ocean science and technology park. There's about 35 aquaculture companies based there, and it's really unique in the whole world and one of the coolest places I've ever been. I'm an aquaculturist, so I really like it, but there's all kinds of stuff going on down there, growing astaxanthin and shrimp and clams and oysters and lobsters and different fish and seaweeds and just all kinds of really cool stuff. I love being there. Okay, so we started up the company, High Health Aquaculture, and from 1993 going forward, we started supplying shrimp broodstock in a lot of places, but between 93, everything in green listed on this table was the U.S. Shrimp industry, and where I've listed those green bars, those are annual production. All of those green bars are produced from High Health Aquaculture's broodstock. And in fact, we were pretty much the exclusive supplier of the broodstock during this era. In the first couple of years, the SPF bar there in 1992, the yellow one, those were the data that blew my mind and convinced me to quit my job and start my business. So that was, those were SPF, those were produced by OI. But for 1993 onward, those were produced by my company. And for a couple years, 93, 94, everything was okay. By 95, this nasty, nasty virus called Tower syndrome virus had arrived in the United States and was really wreaking havoc in the shrimp industry. And you can see for the next 3 or 4 years, production was knocked way back down to what it had been before the SPF stocks. It turned out when we got to know better what was going on, that particular stock, that first stock of SPF shrimp that we had, was quite susceptible to that virus. But it created this opportunity because the farmers were telling us, hey, you got to breed Taura-resistant shrimp. And we said, oh, okay, we'll try doing that. So I talked to lots of geneticists, and most of them told me, oh, that's impossible. You'll never breed an animal that's virus resistant because the virus, generation time is like 1 million times a day, whereas the shrimp is like once a year, 1 generation a year. You'll never be able to outcompete it. But I'm hard-headed, and so we initiated a breeding program for resistance to this Taura virus. Oceanic Institute had something similar to that, and also one of the other shrimp companies that had started up by that time was working on that too. We had amazing success in using a family-based breeding program, and by 1999 we rolled out our first what we called TVR, Taura virus resistant stock, to the U.S. industry. And you can see in 99 we jumped up nicely, but we even then the next year, we kept breeding the animals for Taura resistance and for growth rate. We used a combined breeding program so that production improved. And finally, you can't see it here, but this is 2003, the U.S. industry reached 6,000 tons. That was the last year where High Health Aquaculture was the exclusive supplier to the U.S. industry. Unfortunately, if I would continue this graph on, after they gave up buying my broodstock and switched to somebody else, the numbers went precipitously down, which was too bad. But for my story, by 1999, we were starting to ship broodstock to Asia, and that just was absolutely overwhelming in terms of the demand. So we've learned some things along the way, and because I'm relating all this to sustainability, let me just say how the SPF shrimp story relates to sustainability. First of all, the SPF technology greatly reduced shrimp disease and antibiotic use in the industry. So that was a fantastic thing because there was a reputation or an actual practice in the shrimp industry. They were using a lot of antibiotics back in the day, and it was just really a bad thing, so that the products were contaminated, and it just was bad. So SPF technology eliminated that problem, which was fantastic. Another thing that the SPF technology did was it eliminated the industry's dependence on wild-caught animals. Before the domestication of anime, they were using broodstock from the wild and the PL to produce the PLs. And the development of the domesticated SPF stock eliminated that requirement, and so we're no longer taking animals out of the natural environment, which has greatly reduced the pressure on those animals. And finally, the SPF shrimp made sustainable intensification in shrimp farming possible. And sustainable intensification is really important both in aquaculture and in agriculture because it's talking about higher production per unit area, which becomes a thing of efficiency. You use less water, you use less land, it's less stressful on the people, and it's really the direction we want to go in terms of food production. More sustainable intensification, and the SPF shrimp definitely did that. The fourth thing that I didn't list up here is the SPF shrimp made possible the idea of indoor shrimp farming. And there's a whole bunch of activity right now around the world in various places where people are growing shrimp indoors close to the big markets, with the idea that that will be a preferred source of shrimp for the marketplace. And absolutely, SPF shrimp are essential for that. So SPF shrimp development has contributed hugely to sustainability in the industry. So I had talked about the high health era. Why can't I get this? Can't get this out of the way. Okay. Anyways, the SPF or the high health era now in this slide is still the green bars, but now we're talking about global shrimp farming. So each bar, the height of the bar, is annual production. So we started, High Health Aquaculture started supplying broodstock to the industry in 1993. And it was, sort of slow, steady. The global production was slow and steady during that time, but we hadn't really gotten that much traction out in the out of U.S. industry. But by 1998, some interest had cropped up in Taiwan, and we started selling SPF broodstock into Taiwan. And in 1998, they had phenomenal success. We were on the front page of the national newspaper, and the Taiwanese were loving the results they got from the SPF anime, and the orders just came pouring in. And so that was really the beginning, and the floodgates opened. And from like 1999 up to about 2010, we were just struggling to keep up with the amount of orders that we got for broodstock. It was really wild. And you can see this incredible exponential growth in the shrimp industry during this era. So that was really quite a ride for us to be on. And then at the red bars onward, that's to indicate the incidence of a disease called EMS. I'm not going to talk about today, but we sold the company in 2012, and so all this junk that happened since then is not me. I didn't do it. Okay. Let's see. So let's try to quantify what was the impact of the globalization of SPF shrimp, which is what I said was the principal goal of developing high health aquaculture. At the time that we started to sell SPF broodstock on the global stage, 1997, global production was around 700,000 metric tons, which was worth about $3.5 billion at the time. By 2018, the SPF shrimp, the global production was up to 4.2 million tons. So that's a six-fold increase in production. And the value is about 25 billion, which is, roughly the same 6 or 7-fold increase. If you do a calculation and say the baseline is 700,000 tons per year, and calculate the cumulative increase in production over that baseline created by the SPF shrimp, the cumulative added value to the industry over those 20 years was $225 billion, which is really quite incredible. The other thing that's not in this graphic, but I should mention it, was that we created a broodstock export market for the state of Hawaii, which has been running at somewhere about $30 million a year, and the cumulative broodstock sales from Hawaii have been about 250 million, where prior to the development of the SPF shrimp, that didn't exist. That was a brand new industry that we created. So I want to say a few words about sustainable shrimp farming, because that's one of the subjects of this today's discussion is sustainability, and sustainable shrimp farming is a very important concept. I've listed what I consider the key elements of sustainable shrimp farming, and they're these. First, the farm needs to be sited in an environmentally suitable location. So not where there's mangroves, let's not cut down mangroves to build shrimp farms. That's a bad idea. Let's put it above the mangroves. And, environmentally friendly siting is key. Okay, number two, utilize SPF technology throughout. And by that, I mean both the seed stock that goes into the sustainable shrimp farm should be SPF, but also the farm should be operated with a significant level of biosecurity, which we learned how to do in developing the SPF shrimp. Number three, use probiotics, not antibiotics. And that's, people are learning a lot about the probiotic applications for agriculture and aquaculture, and they're really, really quite fantastic. And let's get away from the antibiotics and save those for real issues of human disease. Okay, use water treatment technology to avoid the negative discharge of the aquaculture impact. And this is becoming more and more prevalent. And you see farms all over Southeast Asia being modified so that rather than just simply discharging their wastewater, they put it through a treatment pond and try to reduce their impact on the environment. Finally, sustainable shrimp farming should use plant-based feeds when possible. And there's some really exciting stuff happening out in the aquaculture world where people are trying to introduce alternative proteins into the feeds so that we're not using ocean-caught fish meal and fish oil. And some of the production trials that are happening right now have been really fantastic. Calista just had a nice publication showing significant immunological benefit from incorporating their microbial product. I saw a report from a insect-based feed that showed really elevated shrimp growth rates in response to the insect feeds. So this whole area has fantastic potential. And I expect for sure shrimp farming will go to 5 million metric tons. And I think in the next 10 years, it'll get to 10 million metric tons. Okay, so what are the metrics for high health aquaculture? Basically, I had the company for 18 years. We developed 4 species of SPF shrimp. We garnered 9 SBIR grants, including NSF, Department of Commerce, and USDA. We sold 350,000 broodstock to 26 countries around the world. And finally, the one big step, the big thing, we sold the company to an Asian multinational in 2012. And as I said in the beginning, that was my goal from the beginning, was to develop this business and then sell it. Some of the key lessons that I learned for entrepreneurs from this experience with high health aquaculture was first, develop a compelling business plan. That's my mantra. I love that idea, and I strongly encourage anybody listening that's an entrepreneur is really work your business plan. That's super important. Once you have a business plan, that's a living document. You've got to work on carrying it out, but also, if needed, you've got to adjust, right? And that's point 4 is pivot if needed. Number 3 was, as I mentioned before, it was the Amazon mantra, know your customers. And finally, the last point is persist. If there's anything that separates the winners from the losers in the entrepreneur industry, it's their level of grit, how persistent they are. You have to be relentless, never give in, keep going. You can do it. Okay, so after I sold High Health Aquaculture, I took a couple years of what I call recreational retirement, where, played golf, traveled a lot, and just had a pretty cash lifestyle. And it was very nice. I was happy doing it. Living in Hawaii with no obligation is a pretty cool thing. But honestly, for me, who I am as an individual, I really like to be engaged in things. So I started then doing some consulting in the outside world, and that's my consulting business is called Marine Genetics. That's what this page is. Right now, I have a beautiful contract with the government of Guam. I'm developing an aquaculture feasibility study for Guam as my consulting business. Okay, let's see if we can get this to work. This is our tag, our stinger. It's supposed to have a little recital. I don't know what happened, but okay, sorry. Okay, let me go to the next slide. Okay, so High Plan. This is my next company. You can see there's a high in everything I do. Anyways, High Plan. That's that's an acronym for Hawaii Island Business Plan Competition. This is a 501c3 nonprofit that I formed. I was very enchanted with and impressed by the cluster benefit of being at NELHA. And what do I mean by cluster benefit? That is, there's a lot of people around that are doing similar things to you. And so you go to the coffee shop and you bump into a guy that has a company down the road and he's doing this, that, or the other. And you can talk story on where did you get that pump? What do you think of this guy as an employee? And so on and so forth. So that really was valuable to me at NELHA. And I just thought that Hawaii Island entrepreneurs needed that kind of situation. And so I set as a goal for High Plan the idea of developing the Hawaii Island entrepreneur ecosystem. So the entrepreneurs would be connected together and could help each other. So what did we do? We conducted an annual business plan competition, and that was sort of our big event. And this was to put people through a sort of a Shark Tank-like experience that allowed them to practice their speaking capabilities and their planning capabilities. And we put a big $25,000 cash prize as the reward. And that was really the hook to get them into the process where we could actually train them and help them out. So once the companies came in and signed up for the High Plan competition, they had to go through our business plan writing workshops and also our communications workshops, where we gave them a chance to pitch their thing before they actually got in front of the judges. And I think people grew a lot in the process. I saw some of the entrepreneurs that the first time I heard them speak, they could barely eke out a hello, how are you? And after we had gone through 3 or 4 sessions with them and nurtured them along, they could really tell the story, and it was great. They relaxed and got more comfortable in their speaking style. And then the other thing about creating the ecosystem was we convene a monthly entrepreneur meetup where people come together and everybody has a chance to introduce themselves and give a 1-minute pitch about what their business is. And also we have guest speakers and stuff, and it's just a great way to stitch together the entrepreneur ecosystem. Here's a flyer from advertising one of our business plan competitions one year. So basically it was a $25,000 prize to Hawaii Island's best business plan. Anybody who was Hawaii Island-based venture, whether they were an individual or a team, whether they were a startup or expanding, whether they were for-profit or non-profit, all of them could enter the competition. And the grand prize is $25,000, and our website has more information about that. And as I said earlier, we gave the $25,000 prize, but we also got commitments from the University of Hawaii at Hilo and Hawaii Community College to award scholarships, student scholarships, for students that participated in the business plan competition. So this particular group, these were computer science students at UH-Hilo. They had developed a very interesting app called Student Corner, and they won scholarships for the following year from participating in the High Plan event. Here's another of our winners. This is the 2020 grand prize winner, Amanda Gilroy. Amanda is the founder and principal of Mermaid Mushrooms, and she gave a fantastic presentation and is doing really great work in her mushroom farm over in Kona. And subsequent to winning the High Plan prize, she also won the scholarship from HCC, where she's a part-time student. And then subsequent to that, she got an investor to put some money into her business, and she's developing a brand new facility. So it's all great. Worked out really well. These are the metrics from High Plan. We've operated for 5 years. We awarded $200,000 in cash and prizes. We've 200 Hawaii Island businesses have passed through our program and gotten educated by us. 50% of our entrants are ag related, and 4 out of 5 of the winners of the High Plan competition were ag companies. And here's the amazing statistic: 5 out of the 5 winners every year, the winner was a woman who had a woman-led business. So congrats to the women of Hawaii Island. They are the entrepreneurs of choice for sure. Okay, the last business I want to talk about today is we're pivoting here from the business plan competition to something we call the Tropical Ag Tech Conference. As I said, a lot of the entrants and activities within the High Plan business plan competition were ag folks. And, you know, the ledge has passed this ordinance law where the supply of food in Hawaii is supposed to be increasing every year over the next 5 years. We're going to try to, by 2030, have 30% of the food produced locally. Well, in the current state, that's not happening, and we really have to do something. And so we thought through carefully, how could we contribute to those very aggressive ag growth strategies. And we came to the conclusion that ag tech and the incorporation of ag tech into the Hawaii ag industry is essential. And I'll go through some of the logic that we have. This slide is just an assessment of the Hawaii ag situation. Basically, it's a long-term downward trend, both in total dollars and percent contribution to the GDP. And this is, we're now less than 0.5% of the GDP is from ag, even though Hawaii has a tremendous ag tradition and we have all these people to feed. All of our food is imported, like 90%. Civil Beat has reported extensively on the subject. The UHERO group, that's the economics research organization over at UH, has studied the ag industry, and what they report is that the farmers are barely making any money. A third problem is the farmers are aging. They're all now in their mid-60s, and that's really a tough thing too, and their kids are being told, go find something else, don't be a farmer. But when you dig into the data, what do we find? We find that within the ag industry, those crops that are using ag tech show higher revenue, higher margins, higher wages. Those are all things we want, okay? And so we believe that more ag tech brought into the Hawaii ag industry will increase efficiencies, it will increase profits, and it'll make it more attractive to young people because they're tech obsessed. And finally, the IP that we develop in tropical ag tech has a global marketplace. The tropics are where population growth is huge, but ag in the tropics is basically legacy style subsistence agriculture, and we really need to introduce technology into that space. And we believe that if we develop those technologies for tropical ag tech in Hawaii, they have exportable value. Quick comment, USDA is interested in sustainable agriculture, of course. There's their definition. They support economic viability of agriculture, and they really emphasize developing climate smart agriculture. So our Tropical Ag Tech Conference initiative is listed here. We're going to develop the Ag Tech Conference on Hawaii Island. We are going to secure global thought leaders to speak at the conference. And oh my God, we've got a listing of speakers that are just super impressive. I'm absolutely thrilled. And this is a conference, I would travel to go see this conference, but I'm not going to get into the details of it yet. We'll start advertising it soon. We're going to run the conference in what they call hybrid format. So we'll have people who are there will see it in person, but we'll also live stream it so people can watch it over video also. And at the end of the conference, in the last hour or two, we're going to convene a panel to discuss ag tech role in sustainable ag in Hawaii and the tropics, and especially focus on how to commercialize those. So what do we know about ag tech? In general, when you look at the U.S. industry, they get higher yields, bigger margins, higher paying jobs, younger workforce, and new high value crops. That's why we're interested in ag tech. We divide ag tech into two general areas. We have biological ag tech, which includes breeding and genetics, which are my interests, also microbial, microbiology, fermentation, and these other things, all the biological aspects of ag production. And then, of course, what more commonly thought of as ag tech is the artificial intelligence, big data, blockchain, drones, robots, machine learning, all that. So all the digital and the biological will be kind of half-half in our conference. Let me draw some conclusions then. Hawaii Ag needs transformation to increase its efficiency, its productivity, its sustainability, and its profitability. We believe Ag Tech can provide the tools to create that transformation. New Ag Tech intellectual property developed in Hawaii could be commercialized worldwide, and that would follow the pathway that we developed with the SPF shrimp. Develop it in Hawaii and sell it to the world. It's my view that entrepreneurs are the secret sauce of economic development. And finally, science-based, data-driven decision-making and innovative solutions will decarbonize our economy. Thank you very much.
Good job, Jim. My goodness. I'm going to ask you to stop sharing. I want to thank you for that incredible presentation. There are so many questions I have. We only have 2 minutes, but I can't ask my question. I want to have somebody ask one. His name is Noel Morin, and he says, given the ever-evolving nature of vectors, it seems that proactive mitigation of diseases was critical to the business. Did we include focus on this effort? If so, how important was the activity in the success of the organization? And should entrepreneurs invest in threat scanning?
Yeah, let me address that, because one half of the SPF technology is the biosecurity half, and I think that that's the issue that Noel is speaking to. That's very important, and particularly for the people like the Hawaii broodstock producers, biosecurity is super important, because the whole value of their breeding activity is tied up that the animals have to be SPF in order for them to get the high price that they do worldwide. So these problems will continue, and I believe, the lessons learned in the shrimp SPF technology are applicable across many, many systems. And I've been watching the whole COVID thing, from my shrimp background, and it's amazing. We're kind of like in a human situation. We're reliving many of the lessons we've learned in the shrimp industry. So it's very relevant, I think.
That's awesome. Well, we have one more. It's 11 o'clock, and I want to be respectful to everybody, but there's just one more question. What's the biggest challenge you have faced building an entrepreneurship ecosystem island-wide?
The biggest challenge. The entrepreneurs are fantastic. The biggest challenge is to get the political system to understand that entrepreneurs are the secret sauce of economic development. They are the engine of economic development, and the policymakers need to understand that. And I would say, throw some money in there, because the entrepreneurs struggle to find capital. And so any support that the policymakers can pass over to the entrepreneurs would be well served, and would be a great investment.
So thank you so much. Well, let me finish with my slide. Where are we? Here we go. Whoops, here it is. The slide that we have a couple things happening for the rest of the week. Actually, a few things happening for this week. Next, we have tips for running a successful nonprofit with Micah Almeida. And so he's going to be coming up at 11:30. But I want you to go to gewalohastate.org for all of the events. We have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, a ton of events on Friday happening. So go and see who we have listed and enjoy some of this, drink up some of this information, because it's all good stuff. But I want to thank our partners who have put all of this GW Aloha State together. We have a ton of logos and a ton of names. I can't read them all, but I want to thank our collaborators, sponsors, and supporters. Working together makes all of these things possible. And Jim, I want to thank you for sharing with us today your insight on sustainability. I mean, what you've done with that small idea that's turned into a massive idea is absolutely incredible. Your first statement was start small, and you did that. But what a pleasure it was to hear your story and to learn about how big we can make things if we actually try. So I want to thank you all for being with us today, and hopefully we'll see you throughout the rest of the week. I'll be here all week, so I'm looking forward to it. But Jim, thank you for everything that you've given us today. And folks, thank you all for joining us. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll see you at the next event. All right? Thank you so much.